Today, our group will be talking about the statute of frauds. We will include examples and definitions to help all of you to gain a better understanding of this legal concept. The statute of frauds is a very important legal concept that protects an individual from being defrauded. Every state recognizes this concept and has a law that requires certain type of contracts to be in writing in order to be enforceable. However, there are exceptions to the statute of frauds. Some of these exceptions include where there is a partial performance that is accepted or through a uniform commercial code. A partial performance that is accepted is where a party completes performance under an oral contract, and the Uniform Commercial Code is an oral contract that regulates the transfer or sale of personal property. Well, you might be wondering what type of contracts fall under the statute of frauds. Well, here in Connecticut, the ones that fall under is seen through an acronym of MILEGS. MILEGS stands for contracts involving marriage, a year or longer, interest in land, estates, good, and surety. The first one up on the list that we will talk about is marriage. A marriage refers to the desire to make a legal union between two people. In order for the marriage to be legal and enforceable, there needs to be a contract in writing. Now, picture this. Jack and Ashley are getting married. However, Ashley starts to get a little nervous and starts second questioning her decision. While Jack sees this and being the wonderful guy he is, casually mentions to Ashley that he has a very big beach house. And if they were to get married, it would also technically become hers. Well, after seeing how big his beach house really is, Ashley really wants to get married. But she knows that in order for it to be actually hers, they need to have a written contract for the marriage to be enforceable, which they end up doing. And I'm guessing in around a year they'll probably divorce, which also would need to be in a written contract. Piece of advice: don't get married over a beach house. Here's the actual code of statute frauds in Connecticut that involves marriage. I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to read it because there's a lot of numbers and I'm not going to read it out loud. The next contract that falls in the statute of frauds in Connecticut is a contract that takes a year or longer to be performed or started. These type of contracts need to be in writing to be enforceable as well. An example is seen with Tony. Now, Tony is a construction worker that just loves to paint and for some reason accepts a paint job that starts a year later. Now, in order for Tony to actually be able to get the bag and work, this type of agreement will have to be in writing just in case his boss decides not to pay him or hire him later on. Here's another actual excerpt of the Connecticut Statute of Frauds Code regarding a year or longer contract. Now, as for the L in my legs, it pertains to interest or sale of real property, and in order for the property to be yours, there also needs to be a written contract. Now let's look at Jill's and Stacy's situation. Stacy comes to her dear friend Jill and tells her that she will lease out her apartment for $200 less of the asking price if there is no contract to be signed. Jill, not really knowing or thinking of anything that can go wrong, takes up Stacy on her arm. Well, Jill accidentally ends up sleeping with Stacy's boyfriend. After finding that out, Stacy immediately kicks Jill out and ends up throwing all her clothes out the window. Because Jill did not sign any contract by her lease, Jill ends up homeless. You guys already know the drill. Read the actual statute of frauds code in Connecticut to yourselves. The next type of contract that needs to be written is an estates contract. Now, this is a contract where there is a promise made by an executor or administrator to answer for damages. We got another construction worker over here. Now, Andrea was brought on a risky project. Being a little hesitant about it, Andrea's boss promised her he would cover any medical expenses if they were to occur. Well, Andrea gets onto working and gets ran over by one of those construction trucks. She ends up in a coma and be in the hospital for over 2 weeks. When she's out of the coma, Andrea tries to bill her boss, but because there was no written contract form, Andrea's boss might not be liable if we don't take into account any other information. Here's some more actual statute of fraud code in Connecticut for you guys. Don't worry, guys, we're almost at the end. We got 2 more to go. Now, the G stands for goods. Any sale of goods that is over $500 needs to be in writing. Now, being a little bored in her life, Victoria pretends to want to sell her car to John for $550. Little does he know, he's not getting that car. However, they eventually agree to meet up at a certain time to trade. Well, once they actually meet up, Victoria laughs in his face and tells him he's not getting that car. John, not knowing about the statute of frauds, thinks he could sue Victoria into giving him her car. Since there was no written contract and it was over $500, I don't think John's going to win this one. Here's another Connecticut code for you guys. And finally, the last letter of my legs is S. Now, the S stands for surety, or a promise to pay the debt of another. Jane has a problem, a really big problem. She loves to shop. She ends up buying $60,000 worth of clothes on store credit. Well, the store isn't too happy and requires either her or a guarantee to sign a contract saying they'll pay the debit. Jane has a really good friend named Jessica. Jessica, believing that Jane will never do her dirty, signs a contract for Jane, thinking she'll just pay it off for her next paycheck. Well, obviously, Jane disappears, and the store wants their money. Because Jessica did sign the contract to pay for Jane's debt, Jessica now owes them $60,000. To be honest, though, Jessica kind of deserves it for being an idiot. Sucks for her, though. And here's our last actual Connecticut statute of fraud code. Now, just to recap a little bit, in case you guys weren't paying attention, which you should have been because this project was amazing, the statute of frauds is a legal concept that requires certain types of contracts to be in writing in order to be enforceable. Of course, there are some exceptions to this rule, including either partial performance that is accepted or uniform commercial codes. There's still a lot of contracts that need to be in writing. In Connecticut, it is easy to remember which contracts need to be in writing with using MyLegs. Now, MyLegs stands for marriage, a year or longer contracts, interest in land, estate, goods, or surety. All these contracts need to be in writing to be enforced. Well, that concludes our project, and I want to thank you guys so much for your time and patience, and I hope all of you guys have a better understanding of the statute of frauds.